folk of Alexander, and some of Hercules, of Hector and Lysander, and such great names as these. But of all...
Hello and welcome to this Battlemech overview. Today we are going to be looking at Clan 65 Tons Battlemech. This presentation is actually an older presentation that I had to give to a group of new technicians that started working at the factory because they had never really worked with clan equipment or Omnimechs in general. Not too unusual in my part of the inner sphere and the periphery. So let's look at this particular weight class. 65-ton mechs are usually in a bit of a weird place. They're not really heavy enough to maximize weight to weapon ratio, but they still are able to get a decent amount of speed and mobility due to the smaller frame. There's plenty of good enough mechs in that range. The really venerable Thunderbolt, who is probably one of the favorite of a lot of people just due to its polyvalence. The actually polyvalent Catapult, where you can put just about anything you want in those boxes next to the cockpit and shoot with it. And the rather popular Crusader, which is good at medium, short, long range, and at punching people's lights out. But once you start looking into it, it's a weight class where the clans had to innovate because of early failures in the particular weight class development. As with most things clans, the old design started with retrofitting Battlemechs from the Star League into actual new designs, generally going with that 2C designation afterwards. And the first real 2C mech in that 65-ton category was a refit of the Rifleman. The Rifleman is a premium anti-aircraft mech, but I personally really don't like how poorly armored it is, how hot it runs, and, well, quite a few other things. It's not really a great mech, in my opinion. The Rifleman 2C at 5 tons more has a few advantages overall compared to the original one. And the two main designs that came early in the history of the Rifleman 2C are built around all big guns, which is a thing that I enjoy as well. The base model is equipped with 4 large pulse lasers, which are really devastating weapons with the clan specs on them, and they're able to basically pinpoint destruct any aircraft coming into range, and even Battlemechs will think twice before getting into it with them. It is a bit slower than your regular Rifleman at 54 kilometers per hour, but it is jump capable. Your second early refit of the Rifleman for the Rifleman 2C had 4 Ultra Autocannon 2 with 6 tons of ammo. That's a whole lot of DACA, if you ask me. The one problem is that it's, well, Ultra AC2s, so you're going to be shooting 8 stiff breezes per time frame rather than doing decent damage. Against aircrafts, once again, pretty decent, especially against VTOLs, and against any other light vehicles as well. It can be devastating. It is faster than the other model. It goes at the same speed as your old Rifleman and is also jump capable. Another thing you need to know about those Rifleman 2C is that unlike their traditional cousins, those actually have armor. 11 tons of clan ferrofibrous, which it gives about 20% more coverage per ton than your regular armor, which is even better than our own inner sphere ferrofibrous alloy. For an anti-air platform, they do admirably well. They use the same kind of targeting and tracking system as your original Rifleman, which makes it great at that specific role, and they're a bit more well protected against anything else. One of the issue, however, is that they are completely inadequate for mobile warfare, which is the central tenet of clan warfare, and they're really not well suited for those honorable duels that they keep having. Especially, you know, with 4 Ultra AC2s, you're not going to be hurting people a whole lot. In the end, though, there's about 10 to 12 other different models available to discerning buyers. They all have their own idiosyncrasies. There's some with Gauss rifles, there's some with hyper assault Gauss, there's some with tons of medium lasers, late missiles. It was a mech that was produced en masse. There's tons of them, and they're used really as a second line support unit. Omnimech technology brought a whole new game to the clan warfare, and the early second generation Omnimechs led to really proliferation of the technology, with Clan Steel Viper repurposing once again an SLDF design for an Omni-Mech. Nobody really remembered the CRS-6B crossbow, which was built by the Lyran Commonwealth at first. It was fun, it had LRM racks, medium lasers, a PPC, just a little bit of everything. What Steel Viper did, they basically took the basic chassis and rebuilt everything around. Overall though, it is not a super fancy mech. It uses basic armor, a basic skeleton, even a basic engine to build the crossbow Omni version. You're probably not going to be seeing a whole lot of those. Super popular with the standard invading clans. There's just a few of them around. It's powered by a 325 engine with a top speed of about 85 kilometers per hour, which makes it really average compared to other clan heavy mechs. The pod space that it has, which is actually fairly limited since it uses basic construction material for everything, is a pair of 20 rack LRM, one in each arm, with an Artemis 4 targeting computer. And that's really it. Honestly, it's a basic design that does what it's supposed to do, but at 65 tons, I do think it's rather under-equipped for fighting, especially when you look at other mechs in the same bracket, the Vulture, the Timberwolf, which both also carry LRM 20s. One of the great news, though, is that there's nothing rare and nothing unusual on that crossbow. If it breaks, you're gonna be able to fix it just about anywhere in space, even if you're in the deep end of the periphery. As long as you've got a mech construction plant somewhere and some spare parts, you're gonna be able to fix it. Would there be a way to make it better? Well, that's one of the problems with Omni-Mechs. You can't really fiddle around with them as much as with a traditional Battlemech. While they're fully customizable for their pod equipment, everything else has to remain stock, or you have to basically reprogram the whole computer, the whole gyro, the whole neural link. Everything needs to be redone. An easy solution would be to replace the armor and the skeleton with ferrofibrous alloy and endo steel, which would free up room for more pods, but you'd have less room for the equipment. But in the end, that would require you to have a brand new production line. You'd have to build a brand new crossbow rather than just a variant or a config of the crossbow. Next up, we have the mech that actually was introduced to the Inner Sphere as the 65-ton Omni-Mech of choice of the clans, the Hellbringer / Loki. Really, if you were at the beginning of the clan invasion in 3049, 3050, and something popped up on your sensors at 65 tons, most of the time it would have been this Battlemech from Clan L Orsis. It is a very, very odd duck. It's built around electronic warfare and heavy firepower. It's got tons of pod space, and it seems to believe that specialized electronic equipment is better than armor because it only has 8 tons of standard armor to protect it. Think about it this way, the Hunchback has 10 tons of armor and it's 15 tons lighter. It goes at about the same speed as all the other Omni-Mechs of that era at 85, 86 kilometers per hour with a 325 XL Fusion engine. Since it's a clan one, even if you lose a side torso, you're not going to be completely crippled. Where it does shine though is 28 tons of pod space, where you can basically do it whatever you want with it. The AFFC really called it the Loki because it was actually built around an insane loadout of weapon, with a pair of ER PPCs, ER medium lasers, a Streak SRM-6, machine guns, anti-infantry leg module, all that fancy electronic as well, and barely enough heat sinks to be able to shoot anything and not cook the pilots. Honestly, there's no configuration which is built around being actually survivable, which works as long as you're doing that old dual thing the clans love to do. But any frontline officers, any logistics-minded commander, or any engineer will tell you that this is a very, very bad idea, as it is a mech with an extended life cycle. Basically, you've got tons of different configurations. You want to go and just commit a bunch of war crimes, go with the D setup. You've got 4 plasma cannons and 4 medium pulse laser and a bunch more anti-infantry gear, so you can burn down a whole city block within a matter of seconds. You like jumping around and hunting for birds? Well, the E configuration's got an AG-20, an ER large laser, and jump jets. Roughly put, it's got enough pod space to put whatever you want on it. The only thing is, you are not going to be able to survive very long having that equipment out. In the first half of the 32nd century, Clan Jade Falcon actually released the Loki Mark II or the L, depending on who you buy it from, to refresh their Toman, which is an evolution on the Hellbringer design. It's slower at 64 kilometers per hour, and it features the more armor ability on top of stupid amounts of pod space ability, which is not a terrible idea. Your prime configuration is a Gauss boat with a pair of ER large lasers. It does shoot really hard. It has a decent amount of armor, so it's going to survive things. But I do find it weird that Clan Jade Falcon, that really likes being fast and nimble, built a ponderous big boy machine like the L. Who knows? The second 65-ton Omni-Mech which the Inner Sphere had to face was the Cauldron-born / Eban Jaguar. You'll see clan people actually use the term Cauldron-born to talk about it because as it was released for the Battle of Lucian, basically, the other clans didn't know what that mech was, and a lot of them just adopted the Inner Sphere names for it. It's a very nice take on the design. The mech itself is low to the ground and kind of stooped down, so it's actually a little bit harder to hit than most other mechs. You've got a lot of mechs in that style that exist, a bit like the Marauder. Still built around a 325 power plant, so you get a speed of about 85 kilometers per hour, and you've got 9.5 tons of ferrofibrous armor, which is overall decent. Nowadays, I would say that the Eban Jaguar is the most common 65-ton Omni-Mech out there. It's used by just about everyone because Clan Smoke Jaguar, when they got blown out of the sky, the design was basically spread to everybody else. The base design is very decent. It's a Gauss rifle, an LB5X, a 10 rack of LRM, a 2 tube of SRM, and an ER medium laser for good measure. Pretty good at long and medium range, and is fast enough to get where you need to go. My favorite configuration of the design, though, is the B config with 2 ER PPCs, 2 large pulse lasers, 2 medium pulse lasers, an active probe, and a tag. There's nothing more fun than scouting in an heavy mech, from what I was told, and with that sheer amount of firepower, you're going to be able to take out anything that tries to stop you from scouting. Around the same time, Clan Wolf had the similar idea of revamping the 65 tons Battlemech line. Their idea, though, was to go with a 390 XL power plant for their Linebacker, which was originally meant to replace the Timberwolf. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but then again, the factories for the Timberwolves were all in the Homeworld, while Clan Wolf was really thinking of moving to the Inner Sphere at that point. It has more armor than the Cauldron-born with 10 tons of ferrofibrous, so it's well armored, it's rather mobile, and it makes it a bit of an oddity for the clan arsenal at the time because it's meant to be survivable. The one issue, though, is that with all that speed and all that armor, you don't have as much room for pod space with about 18 tons. Your primary configuration features a pair of ERPPCs, an LRM 5 rack, and a Streak 4 rack. Not awful, because I mean 2 clan ERPPCs are great weapons. Missile racks, a 5 rack of LRM is always a bit of an oddity. I don't like small LRM racks. Streak 4, decent enough at crit seeking and at taking out vehicles. And you've got an ER small laser that points backward in case something gets behind you. Overall, that base configuration is not terrible. Like many Omni-Mechs, there's quite a few different config. And if you really hate infantry, there's the I configuration with 20 machine guns set up in 6 arrays, which makes the Piranha look like a sensible mech, and an ER large laser to shoot up everything else. For good measure as well, they stuck a supercharger on that 390 engine, so you can go up to 120 kilometers per hour or so. Now here's the mech that was definitely not built for export. The Aoto was a Clan Diamond Shark, now Clan Sea Fox design, which, as I said, was definitely not built to be exported to the Dragonist Combine. It was made dirt cheap, it was made from off-the-shelf part, and basically just a new version of, let's say, a Crusader in a way. Got 13 tons of regular armor, a small 260 rated power plant, so about 64 kilometers per hour top speed, and even the heat sinks are your regular standard models. As far as weapon goes, well, you've got 60 LRM tubes, 2 20s and 2 10s. So if you want to bombard something at a range, it's great. And since those are clan LRMs, if something gets up close, you can still bump them pretty easily. And as expected, yes, they exported quite a few of them to the DCMS. There's even a version called the HKO1C, which exists for maximum grift using only inner sphere parts, including double heat sinks for some reason. It's also about 3 times the price of the original model. Clan Diamond Shark wanted to make a profit, and they did. Further down the line, Clan Ghost Bear went and designed their own 65-ton mech with the Arcus. And whenever I see one of those show up at the factory, I always think this just looks like a giant battle armor. Not a bad thing, per se, but it just has that bulky look of a clan battle armor. We have probably one of the most mobile 65-tonner here with a 325 XL engine with an 85 kilometers per hour top speed, but you have built-in jump jets as well. So I do think it's better than the Linebacker in terms of mobility, since it can reposition a lot quicker. It's your heavily armored champion as well, with 13.5 tons of standard compound. But as far as weapon goes, it's pretty basic. 2 ER large lasers, 2 medium pulse lasers, and 12 racks of Streak SRM 3x4 in the torsos. It's not going to shoot the hardest, but it's going to stay around the longest and keep moving, so it can be used in quite a few situations. Clan's L horses had migrated to the inner sphere at that point, and they needed a new totem mech. They must have looked back at old Terran Archived and saw Saint Seiya and said, I want that. And they built the Balas, which is a quad, as expected from Clan L's horses in a way, with a top speed, which is pretty darn good at around 95 kilometers per hour with that 390 XL engine. You don't have a whole lot of room to put stuff on, obviously, since it's a quad, but with 16.5 tons of pod space, you still normally have it set up with 2 ER large laser, 2 front-facing and 2 rear-facing medium pulse lasers. On a quad, it's a bit more useful, and a head-mounted flamer, because nothing's more fun than breathing fire with your Battlemech. Its biggest advantage is that it doesn't have tank treads, and a decent amount of armor overall. The most recent 65-ton mech in the clan line, at least that I know of, is the Dominator, which is something Ilkhan Alaric Ward wanted to be used as a terror weapon. And I have to say, it does a pretty darn good job at that. It has a supercharger equipped 325 XL, so your regular speed is around 85 kilometers per hour, but you can actually burst up to around 105, a little bit higher than that. You've got jump jets as well, so it's actually now a little bit more mobile than that Arcus we were talking about. Got 10.5 ton of the fancy armor. It's got reinforced legs, so if you want to stomp on things or det from above with it, it works really well. And one of the end is an actual battle fist in order to punch people in the face. Yes, this is a mech that breaks Hellbringer, but I don't think Alaric Ward really cares at this point in time. In order to get in that range to punch and kick people with, you get an ER PPC and an ER large laser. Very decent ranged equipment, and you can add cap with that ER PPC when required. Once you get at range, you still get a Streak 6 SRM, very efficient, and an ER small laser. I would probably have gone with a micro pulse lasers instead to shoot at infantry, but I'm not the one who designed that mech. Everything is linked to a targeting computer as well, so the pilot actually will be able to hit what it's shooting at. It's not an omni-mech, which might limit a little bit its acceptance by the rest of the clans, but I really think it's a scary little beast. To finish things off here, when the invasion started, all the Inner Sphere really saw was the rather terrible Loki. Whenever a 65-ton mech showed up, it wasn't as scary once you knew how to deal with them. Over time, obviously, we have started seeing more and more modern models, and those old Hellbringers are getting actually pretty rare now. In the battlefields of the Inner Sphere, things keep moving and changing. Really, the hardest thing is always going to be to get your hands on one of those mechs, unless you're an actual clan, and to keep them running, because it's a big investment to equip a clan Battlemech unless you've got direct contacts with clan Seafox, like Flanagan's Repair and Refit as. So I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. I thank you for listening to me for so long, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.